Hi everyone, I'm Glenn Flaherty. This is Board Games and Bourbon. Right now, we're going to talk about a new game I just got called Dragon Ball Z Perfect Cell. This essentially is a co-op game. It says that it's 1 to 4 players, totally true. 30 to 40 minutes. I would say a game is more like 20 minutes. It says 14 and up. That must be due to components because you could totally be 9 years old and play this game just fine. Dragon Ball Z, in summary, quick summary, gameplay, and then a final thought section, is as simple and as unencumbered as the source material of the game. If you are a fan of the series, or if you are a young person, I think you will enjoy playing this very happy-go-lucky game. You do not need to be a fan of the show to understand it. There is a big purple dong on the cover of the box. Let's look at the gameplay. All right, everyone, this is a setup of the game Dragon Ball Z Perfect Cell. This is Cell right here. He's the bad guy. And the point of the game is he is trying to defeat you while you are trying to defeat him. Now, what we have here are 3 tracks and 3 different things that are happening. He has health. It goes from 0 to 70. So you take this little marker and you're going to put it over here on the 70, okay? And you're trying to get his health all the way down. You're going to get his health down by attacking him, and he's attacking you over here. You're going to roll very specific dice and get specific results, and you're going to place them either in the yellow if you're playing by yourself, the yellow and the blue if you're 2-player, or the yellow, the blue, and the green sections if you're playing as 3 or more players. And then you have the section over here where you place things, Dragon Balls, to revive yourself should one of your people die in the game. Now, how does Cell attack you? Well, Cell attacks you by putting out these threat cards, and they are doing different things to you. Some will impede your progress of using your dice, some will damage you, some will heal him, and it goes back and forth. Who are you? Well, in this game, you're going to get a whole bunch of these cards, and they're all different characters, okay? Now, for this game, I've picked out 2. I've picked out Vegeta, that's how I'm going to say it, and Gohan, okay? Now, on each of these cards, they're actually really well made in the following ways. First of all, they're a fun design that lets you add powers in a special way. But each of these cards has a special power right at the very top. So you can see in this case, if this can focus on it, you get 1 free reroll per turn. Then it explains what all of your dice do. You're going to have a red face to the die, and in this case what that really is a single fist. That lets you give 1 damage to the bad guy. You have a green open hand, which on the, it just depends what die you get, and this will assist. It means you can pass it to another player, or you can use that as a currency to buy power-ups in the game. I'll talk about that in a second. You have these Dragon Balls here, and what you can do here is you can discard these to buy 1-up tokens that kind of act like die face, or you can use it to heal. Lastly, you get this double hand imagery here, and what this does is this lets you damage Cell 2 at a time. You're also going to notice on these cards it has a number over here, and this one says 6, and you're going to get 6 health. Same for this character, okay, over here, okay? Now, what about the powers that you can get? Well, as you're rolling your die, let's say we take these die, for example. I'm going to roll them. I got a whole bunch of different results, okay? What do I have? I have a single fist here. I can put that here. That'll damage him for 1 point. Let's say I take this other fist here and I put it here. Now I'm not only damaging him for 2 points, but because I've completed this entire row of attacks, now I get a bonus. So I actually will damage him for 3 points. This meter goes down 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's just say we did that. Now let's say I have some open palm die faces that I want to spend. Well, then I can come over here, and let's say, for example, I'm going to grab this special power. This special power here says I'm going to buy it. I had to spend 2 die to buy it. And then the result is if I put these 2 faces, which normally is only 4 damage, if I put 1 of each here, I'll actually create 8 damage. And that's really, really great. So after I buy this, I put that right here and I can start using it right away. Now, the cool thing, I'm going to move this camera for a second. When I put this right here, look how nice and tidy It was separate. I bought it. It goes right up there. I think that's really cool. A really nice little design element to the game. So it really makes you feel like your character is growing and it's unified and it's quite special. Now, after everyone has taken their turn and, passed their die or spent their dice how they want, Cell is going to go. And so Cell is actually going to activate his powers here. What happened on these cards? So let's move the camera again. Okay, so in this case, you put down one threat per player in the game, okay, per round. So in this case, what's happened is we have one threat out here, and this threat says that he is going to heal 5 damage. So the 3 damage we just did totally gets negated. He goes back to full health. That is a bummer, and that'll stay on the board until we get rid of it eventually. It also says here, power-up cards cannot be purchased. So had I been paying attention, and this is one of the hard part of the games, that would have actually prevented me from buying Gohan's special power here. So you would have had to have gotten rid of that. So what you would want to do on your turn is, let's say I put those 2 down to attack. I might have taken 2 die, and I would have put it here to deactivate and cancel that power. Now I'm able to buy my special power. Then I could spend my die and buy the special power for myself. So it's pretty important that you pay attention to all these things. In a way, I would say this game feels a lot like Elder Sign to me, if you can believe that, because the cards are constant threats. They come every round. You need to defeat them. You need to defeat the big baddie. And there is a timer in the game, and kind of like the countdowns in Elder Sign, the timer is, should you run out of these cards? You run out of those cards, you lost the game. Now, another thing you need to keep track of here is when you look, you'll notice it says on this card specifically, you can put down 2 of any card. However, because it's a connected line, it means they have to be the same kind of die. Whereas for this regenerate ability that he was coming after us with, it specifies what die has to be there. And there's a whole host. This says your fist cards cannot be rerolled or passed. You need those 2. Here it says you cannot reroll the open hand. You need a Dragon Ball and a fist card. Here it says double hands cannot be passed, and you can just use 3 of any card. That's why they're not connected with a line, and so on like that. You don't want to go through it. The powers are just as diverse over here. You're supposed to keep them hidden and display 3 at a time for everybody, but you have like the lightning grenade. Instead of 2 die that are worth 2 damage, together they're worth 3. Here, this is pretty cool. This one says, if you just buy this, 1 additional reroll of any number dice. That's pretty cool. So just a whole host of powers. So it's a really fun experience, you know. You're going to have a fun time playing it. It goes very, very quickly. And the last thing I should say, too, about the die, too, is if you spend your die and you get this Dragon Ball here, you can spend that to do a blind pick. You're going to get one of these tokens. You flip it over. It could be a fist, a double fist. It could be a wild. You spend it in any way you want, but you only get to spend it one time and then it's gone. That is literally how the game goes. You do it until he gets to 0. You run out of the cards. Should you die, that'll never happen, by the way. You're going to come over here. You're spending your die trying to fill up this counter. And should you do that, now everyone's revived and everyone's at full strength. Okay, so let's talk about the scores of the game. So, ease of play, let's score it for that. Ease of play, I give it 10 out of 10. I've played this 20 times. I've won every game at every player account by a mile. And, you know, if you're coming to this game thinking, I want this arduous journey that will result in a really satisfying victory, you are barking up the wrong tree. That is not the intent of this game. That is not the design of it. It's called Dragon Ball Z. You're here to have a, nearly superfluous experience of just the joy and the simplicity of roll and die. And yay, we beat Cell, the bad guy, okay? And that's what's going to happen in this game. The rules are pretty easy to read too, okay? So simplicity, it's 10 out of 10. You're not going to have any problem with that. But let's talk about the rule book for a second. And actually, as far as simplicity, and it's interesting, the game says that there's different levels of it. Like there's an impossible mode in the game. I don't know how that could happen. You have to be really negligent to lose this game on any setting. The hardest part of the game is keeping track of the threat cards in the game, because sometimes they're very specific about what dice you can put down and what dice can be re-rolled or passed and stuff like that. That can be a little bit of an issue to track if you're going through them and all. Sometimes you can forget stuff like that, but it's really not too bad. But what this leads to is the rule book. So the rule book, I'm going to give 5 out of 10. And that is because the current rule book in it, it has like a diagram flipped, like who's 2 players, who's 3 players. It also has some conflicting language in it, like somewhere in the book. Now, this is all corrected if you just read it like twice or 3 times. And then it'll start to make sense, and the conflicts in the language will go away. But on the first pass, you're going to be reading things that say powers activate as soon as they are flipped up, and then in the same paragraph, it'll say the power is activated once it sells part of the turn. So is it active right away or only at the end? That's a big difference in the gameplay. Okay, so the rule book could be better. I give it 5 out of 10 though. The quality of the choices in the game, I'm going to give it for what it is, and I'm viewing it as its own entity. I'll give it a 7 out of 10, maybe 6.5 out of 10. Because the choices in the game, there are choices in the game. They are all relatively equal, because you're never really under so much pressure that there's a better one to do. Certainly if you're in a situation where threats come out where you might be damaged or Cell gets back power, you want to get rid of those first. But other than that, what are you going to do with your die? You're going to attack Cell, you're going to get yourself powers, and if you don't know what to do with your die, you're going to pass it along to the next person. There is a section of the board that says you can set aside die to revive someone. I don't think that'll ever happen. So that's kind of like out of the mix altogether. The build quality, 8.5 out of 10. The game is really, really nice in this regard. The board is nice and thick. The pieces are kind of cool and very durable. They seem like you could spill a drink on it and they'd be fine. They're vivid, they're engaging, and actually they're cut in odd shapes, which I think makes it fun. One of my favorite parts about it is as you get powers in the game, the player mat cards are cut in such a way that when you buy a power, it links up and connects in a very specific, way, which kind of makes it feel cool, like it actually is building. It's not the standard, this is a rectangle, I'll put another rectangle next to it. So for the build quality, I actually give it pretty high marks. For the illustration and graphics, this is kind of twofold. The board itself is monotone green. That can be okay. I understand why, because as you're playing a game, you want the board to kind of recede in the background so you can focus on the gameplay. It could have been more exciting, but the chits and the boards and everything else are actually pretty cool. And, they make you feel like you're always, monitoring something. The color of the board itself to me looks like an 80s monitor, like radar kind of situation. But the other ones are blue and they look really cool. So between the two of them, I'm going to give it an 8.5. So, what is the overall takeaway of this game? I don't know how you're going to lose it. There's a big dong on the cover. That's I can't stop seeing it. Maybe, all right, I'll leave that topic alone. But I had a good time playing it. I don't know if I'd be revisiting it too often. I do think young kids would enjoy it. I think if you're playing with your kids, you might enjoy it. I'll leave it there. I'm not a big anime fan. In fact, I never saw Dragon Ball Z. I just figured it was like Pokemon. And I never saw Pokemon either. That doesn't matter. Okay? The people who are going to dig it will dig it for those reasons. I actually shared it with some people who do enjoy it. They thought it was fine. So there you go. That's Dragon Ball Z by IDW, coming out either now or soon. And give it a whirl. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.